I'm a passionate guy about the history of the city where I live. I've lived in Tangier for about 40 years now. Gradually, I started building this hobby and passion about studying the city of Tangier, which, as you may know, has an amazing history that goes back to 3,000 years ago. This is where I start my tour. So my first stop is at the Grand Soko, but then when I enter, I make a stop right at the beginning of the street to tell a story. People love stories. It is something I discovered recently, and actually it impressed me so much because I didn't know this existed, is that in the summer of 1935, there was a Jewish guy who owned a little building right at the entrance of the Medina, 1 floor high, and he wanted to raise it. So he got construction workers, they started digging. 8 meters below ground, they found a Roman statue, 2 meters high. Now this is very impressive. We talk about 2 meters high statue, impeccable. There was only one hand missing. They found it later. And so for me, this was just great news. It means that when you're in the Medina of Tangier and you're walking through the streets, you're walking on 3,000 years of history. The Medina of Tangier, I once made this comment that it's the most ancient still inhabited city in Morocco. That's quite a claim. But one thing is to hear and read. Another thing is when you visualize something. So right there, they had this big statue, meaning they had probably something else around. Since it was Roman, must have had what they call a decumanus maximus road. In Roman urban planning, if you've done some Roman history, volubilis, if you've been to Walili, it has it. There's a main axis, there's a big street, goes always east to west. In the middle, there would be a forum, and not far, a temple. Tangier has exactly that. Archaeologists have shown with aerial view, Rue Siyarin is the decumanus maximus road of Tangier. Now, this street has an amazing history that has changed over time. We saw about the Romans, but when the Portuguese were there for 2 centuries, now my friend Karim talked about the British 23 years, but the Portuguese stayed over 2 centuries in Tangier. Many people don't know that. This was called Rua Larga, which means in Portuguese, you can understand, it's close to Spanish, the wide street. Why? Because it was a garrison. It was meant for soldiers and troops to move. When the British took over Tangier, it became Catherine Street. Why Catherine? Caterina of Braganza, you heard the story. Over time, that street will change its names. Zanqat Dakhiliya, La Grande Rue, Main Road, Main Street, Rue Principale, until finally, towards the 19th century, it did become a Rue Siyarin because of the Jews who settled there and were professing the job of goldsmiths. So Siyarin, goldsmith, silversmith, didn't have a millah. People lived, Muslims and Christians and Jews lived together. But it's true that on this part of the city, there were a lot of Jewish houses, synagogues. And so we continue walking down towards Souq Dakhel. This is what Rue Siyarin looked like in the late 19th century. We can see on the left the electric cables. There was electricity. And it's funny when you read about this, by the way, because electricity would happen from certain hour to certain hour, and it's not like nowadays. This is a few decades later, same street, and you see the Spanish church, which is there right now. Anyway, you see the evolution. You see Tabacos. This is when Tangier was starting to being mixed with, before international zone, by the way. The international zone is 1923. Now, Souq Dakhel, just like Rue Siyarin, has an amazing history over time. Essentially, again, because of Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah's decision to move the diplomatic missions to Tangier. We had the French post office, we had the English post office, we had the German post office. German is right there to the left. And we had the Spanish post office. And we had cafes. You'd think you're in Europe. Au Grand Paris was a fancy shop. We had banks. We had hotels. We had a casino. There was a casino there. So this place was really the heart of Tangier. I do lots of reading because every time I would find something new that I can add, because I don't know everything, and there's so much to know. And I would, what would be the best story to tell people? Tangier 1936 was already a big city. You had boulevards, you have buildings everywhere, you have many new neighborhoods, but everybody had to go to Soko Chico to meet and to get the news and see what's happening. This is a newspaper in Italy in November 1936. And this is just a drawing of an artist, but this is supposed to be Souk Dakhel. You see the Italian seamen fighting with the Republicans, and you see cafe and binos and stuff like that. When you're passionate about something and you love it, for me, it's been keeping me busy for 4 years now, and I haven't stopped, and I will not stop, because it's like, you know, we talked about digging 8 meters below. We don't know what's under the ground of Tangier. It's the same thing for these stories. The more you dig, the more you find. The more you find, the more stories you can tell. And every time you change the source, you talk about sources, very important. If you go read the French sources, you get one version. You read the Spanish version, sources, another version, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.